You are listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 348.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? I hope you are all doing well. I am reveling in a quiet morning here in the Cookbook Bunker, recording this episode at the end of April in preparation for release right before Mother's Day. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Mother's Day for a minute, related to my personal experience with Mother's Day and something I've noticed kind of as a trend in the online space. So first of all, my mother, Peggy, had 8 children, and she always said there's a reason Mother's Day is celebrated in May, and that is because of April. If you are a parent and you have school-age children or have had school-age children, I think you probably understand what my mom meant. But April is the month where everything for school starts to get wrapped up. Often Easter is that month. Other holidays, Passover holiday is also celebrated and recognized in April. And spring break a lot of times for schools. Not necessarily for colleges, but for elementary and high school, often in April around the Easter holiday or spring holiday. So Mom always said that mothers needed a day in May because of April. And it's funny, all my children are grown, but I kind of feel that way about myself this particular year. I did a lot in April. I put a lot on my calendar that month. I went on a retreat. We took a trip to Chicago. We celebrated Easter. We went to Lexington to go to Keeneland to visit our daughter. Keeneland's a thoroughbred racetrack. And tomorrow we're leaving to go to Texas to visit my husband's brother for the Kentucky Derby, which is why I'm recording this at the end of April. But when I get back, we'll be getting ready to celebrate Mother's Day. And I'm going to look forward to that. April was a busy month, and I don't have school-age children anymore. But those were things that I chose to do. Of course, children is something that we have. They're part of our life. We do it. But I think it's great that mothers are celebrated in May, and I'm looking forward to it. And I always enjoyed time I spent with my mom on Mother's Day when she was alive. What I've noticed, though, in the online space is opportunities for people to opt out of email sequences if they're triggered by Mother's Day. I suspect that's because maybe they're not parents, they chose not to be a parent, or they wanted to be a parent and weren't able to, or they have a relationship with their mom that they do not want to remember. And I think all three of those situations are terribly heartbreaking. I have found the greatest amount of personal growth and maturity through healing my relationship and living fully my relationship with my own mom, and in turn being able to have children. It's been one of the most wonderful, life-giving things, and I always feel so sorry that people feel like they need to opt out of emails and things about Mother's Day. But I guess I'm telling you this because this episode does celebrate mothers. We are talking about a cookbook about a mother and a daughter, and if this is something that does not appeal to you, feel free to not listen to this, but we are going to gush about moms for a little bit. And I am excited to bring you this episode. It was a true joy to talk to my guest today, and her name is Sarah Ahn. She is a digital storyteller, creator of Ahnest Kitchen, where she shares and documents her mother, Soon Ahn's recipes. In their new book, Umma, A Korean Mom's Kitchen Wisdom and 100 Family Recipes, Sarah and Soon take a deep dive into Korean home cooking, along with decades of wisdom and techniques that will help anyone cook like a Korean Umma. Today on the show, we talk all about Sarah building her online presence, the journey with her mother, writing their book Umma, helpful tips for building a pantry that bring out 3 key flavors: sweet, salty, and tang, what recipes you should start with if you dive into using the book, as well as a mother's love and wisdom and how far moms will often go for their children. So without further delay, let's dive into this interview with Sarah Ahn. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the Cookbook Love podcast.
Hi, Maggie. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Can't wait to dive in to talk all about your book. But before we do, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Sarah Ahn. I go by Ahnest Kitchen. That's Ahnest Kitchen on social media. I guess I call myself a storyteller and content creator on Instagram and TikTok, where I share stories of my very ordinary life living in a Korean American household with my parents. And my parents are these 2 amazing people, where my mom used to own a restaurant, is a very talented Korean cook. And my dad paints homes for a living, the exterior of homes to be exact. And we share just the richness in the ordinary with my followers that resonate with our content.
Yeah, I think it's so amazing. And what I love about this is you said you live in an ordinary Korean home, and you, through digital storytelling and content creation, have created a community of people that follow along with what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about that journey there, because I know it connects to where we're going to land today, which is with the book that you wrote.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to share my household and our way of life with people online, just because I feel like this way of living, which is very ordinary. I live at home and I live with parents who work very hard. I understand the concept of what it's like to not have PTO, what it's like to have to work with your body to provide a roof over your head. I just feel like that side of the story has never been shared online. And I really wanted to create a space where this type of life is celebrated and seen. And I did that through storytelling and food, which we focused on Korean food.
Yeah. When did you start your journey telling this story online?
I started officially in 2019 when I started my blog. But it really wasn't until 2022 when I moved onto social media, when I combined the storytelling with my mom's recipe. That's when things really took off, and when people were able to resonate with the food, but also the stories that came with the food.
Yeah. I think 2022, were you doing Instagram or TikTok at that time?
I did both.
Yeah. And was there a one platform that seemed to respond better than the other, or was it equally well received?
Equally well received. Typically, if one video blew up, the other one blew up as well. And so there's this kind of unspoken synergy between both platforms, because it's the content that was the heart of the show.
Yeah. Give us an example of the kinds of things that you found really resonated with the people who were following you.
Yeah, the one that really blew Ahnest Kitchen up and got my first 10,000 followers, and then the next day was like 30,000 followers, was the one where I took my mom back to Korea after being in America for 30 years. And I think people were just not necessarily waiting for that type of content, but people finally felt seen, where I talked about how for a lot of families, coming to America was the dream so that they could raise their kids here, so that they could achieve their dreams. But at the same time, our parents who sacrifice everything are not able to go back home. And so I finally took my mom back to Korea after saving money for us to both go. And I said in the video, there comes a point in our life where the kids become kind of like the parents to their parents, where you have to teach them everything. And I showed my mom how to use this new screens on the airplane that she wasn't used to when she came here in the 1990s. They didn't have TV screens on the chairs. And I taught her how to use, the subway station that is now filled with technology, because back then her subway station was bare and just had the minimum. And so that's a video that really blew up and resonated with people, because again, people just weren't seeing that online. It's the less glamorous side of life, but the real, honest life. Another video was about my inability to speak Korean fluently and just how much it's my fault that I'm not fluent. I need to find the time to learn this language. But I also talked about how there's this type of pain that comes with not being able to share your favorite essays you wrote in college. And eventually I went on like a TED Talk in Korea and they translated everything for me, this essay that I had presented as a speech. And it was my parents' first time seeing me present something in its full intellect, where they're able to see what I was saying in translation. And it was just mind blowing to finally be able to do that and for them to truly understand my academics, my intellect, and whatnot. And so that video really blew up where people resonated with the inability to speak their parents' language and how much they want to do that, but just haven't yet.
Yeah. Yeah. They were speaking Korean as you were raised. You were raised speaking English, or was there ever, did they speak English some well? You Korean some well, but it was never just the full extent for both of you?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my parents are fluent in Korean and they know some English just living here in America. But they've just been so busy working every day. My dad works from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
He comes home exhausted. And so their extent of learning English can only go so far because they're so busy. Um, and I speak obviously fluently in English
Yeah.
and I'm not fluent in Korean, but I don't really have an excuse. So that's kind of what the video was about. And, after this whole cookbook tour ends and all of that, I definitely plan to learn Korean fluently.
Interesting. Yeah. I wonder if that's a unique story for someone like you. You probably would know the answer to that question better than me, but I hadn't really thought about it that way because we take so much for granted communicating with our parents. But I bet a lot of the communication that you did with your mom came through the food that you were creating. You know what I mean? Just like spending time together. And but for her to be able to see a paper that you wrote at a high level and understand it at a high level in her language, I'm sure it was a very touching moment.
Exactly, exactly. And so, yeah, that's kind of what my storytelling is like. It's the thoughts that we all have, but maybe are a bit more shy to share those vulnerable thoughts. I share them with grace and integrity, and I think people are able to relate to that. And I often share it with my mom's recipes that
Yeah.
transport you back in time.
Yes. Yes. I heard it said that if you want to speak authentically, I put that in quotes, to people, a community, sometimes we have to be willing to say the things that other people aren't willing to say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that sounds to me like that is what has set you apart. Your ordinary life with hardworking parents, with no paid time off, working with their body just to put a roof over their head. You're right. I don't think people are always willing to go there because they're like, I don't know that that's something we should be talking about.
Yeah. And it took a while for me to talk about it just because in Korean culture, it's kind of shunned to work a non-office job. But I think that's extremely problematic. I think job titles were so blinded by the fancy title, but there's so much more to life than just that. And I talk about that in the book. And the first chapter, the thickest part of the book, the panchan section, which are the small side dishes you get at Korean barbecue and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
It opens up about my dad's work, but I had to ask him permission if it's okay if we talk about his work. And it took some convincing for him to be okay with it, just because in Korean culture, again, not working an office job and living that type of life is it's not seen in high regards, which is a shame.
It is a shame. And I really, truly hope that in our country as well, here in the US, that this work that people do with their hands and they're creating tangible things and creating beautiful things is so important for us as people. And
Exactly.
it is, but it is hard work. And I just don't know if we're becoming people that shy away from that we don't think we should have to do it. But but if you talk to your parents and you can get them to maybe describe it, it is hard work, but there has to be a sense of, feeling gratified. Like I've heard people say, like, when you put your head on the pillow at night, I mean, they're like, we're tired because we've been working like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, like, it's a topic that I could talk about all day just because it's also a thing where I actually have concern because I think people of my generation don't want to work these type of jobs anymore because it is so tiresome. But these are jobs that make the world go around, and we
Who's
need
gonna?
these
I mean,
people.
who's gonna do it?
Exactly. And I think it's one of the few jobs that AI cannot replace, if I had to be
100%
yeah,
AI cannot paint our houses. Now,
exactly.
maybe
So
one day, listen, I guess we watch a home improvement show on PBS every weekend called This Old
yeah.
House. It's been on forever. And now they're printing like walls of houses that are made to specifications, and they come in, and not just the exterior walls, but the interior walls. The whole house designed and shipped, kind of like what an old Sears Roebuck house used to be. So maybe they'll come. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen?
Who knows?
But I think that it's not even that someone else, AI, could do it, or a computer could do it, or a robot could do it. But it's good. I think it's good for us as people to do things like that with our. There's just something about it that connects our brain and our heart and our hands that
Mhm.
we don't do when someone else does it for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's exactly what I celebrate on Ahnest Kitchen
100%.
and
Well,
in
that's
this book.
wonderful. Yeah. And so your mom had a restaurant.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She did. And yeah, she owned a restaurant for about a little over 10 years. Very, very talented cook. But as with anyone knows, a restaurant
Oh, yes.
tears down a family.
Yes.
And that was very much the case for us. So it's a thing of the past, but her her talent for cooking really shows in the fact that she used to own a restaurant, and that's kind of her philosophy when it comes to cooking. You could see she comes from the restaurant industry,
Yes.
where at the end of the day, she just wants the food to be good and for
Yeah.
everyone to enjoy it.
Yeah. 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 Restaurant hours for culinary and cooks are brutal, and it's
Mhm.
weekends and nights, and um, so amazing that you've been able to capture all that she does in the kitchen through your book. So let's talk a little bit about the book. So you doing the digital storytelling. What happened that led you to the creation of the book?
Yeah, so I was sharing content online of all these different storytelling, things that happen in life that's vulnerable and real. And then I was also sharing my mom's recipes at the same time. And eventually, multiple publishers reached out to me and wondered if I'm interested in doing a cookbook. And I actually had negotiated with one publisher for quite a bit. And just as I was going to sign with them, I got an email from America's Test Kitchen, who is also my employer. It's where I work full time. And the CCO at that time asked me if I'm interested in writing a cookbook with them. And I just thought it was just such weird timing because I was literally about to sign it and feed it into my printer to send to that other publisher. And I knew this was a sign that I probably should go with ATK, America's
Mm-hmm.
Test Kitchen, because I just know they're highly respected in this cookbook space. And
Yes.
it's a decision I wouldn't regret. And so I moved forward with ATK. And it's a decision I'm so happy I went with because it was a different process than what most publishers go through, and what most authors go through. And I'm fully convinced I don't think I could have had a stronger book with another publisher.
Yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about the differences. What does ATK focus on when they create their books that really sets them apart?
So ATK is its own food media company. They have cookbooks, they produce magazines, they produce different shows on Amazon to our own shows on PBS. They're an online platform, membership thing. They have everything. And so they have their own set of test cooks that come from Michelin restaurants, culinary schools, and whatnot. And so this was basically the entire process. My mom developed all the recipes. And once she perfected that, I learned all the recipes. And then I put it on paper online so I could send it to ATK. And then ATK tested all the recipes, their own test cooks. And then they polished it up and validated it to make sure it's in a professional word setting. And then they sent it back to me and they're like, now, Sarah, you retest all the recipes, not your mom, but you, a normal home cook who doesn't have a restaurant background. We want to see if you can do it because then that means anyone who reads the book can do it.
Right.
And so then I had to retest all the recipes with my mom by my side. And then once we retested all of that, I had to send it back to A2K. And those are the recipes that landed in the book. So that's one thing that sets it apart. And also, I didn't have to look for my own food stylist. I didn't have to find my own plates and
Yeah.
silverware.
Yeah.
All of that was provided by ETK, and they even hired a Harvard professor to translate all the Korean to English. So that's how detailed they are in this book, and why I'm convinced no other publisher could have done this.
Yeah. Now, a lot of my listeners love to they like to use cookbooks. They like to buy them. A lot of them like to read them. And I want to say that there's a lot to read here because this is not just a recipe book. It's a 384 page, as it says on something that I was emailed. It's a deep dive into Korean home cooking, where a mother and daughter share decades of wisdom and techniques that help anyone cook like a Korean Umma, with approachable chapters that cover the essentials. And I think it's maybe about 100 recipes. So there is so much to this book. I'm trying to even think about where we should start. I guess the beginning, the chapters leading into the recipe chapters, and you can kind of walk us through the book a little bit. And if you think about it from the perspective of someone who's, new to the book, what they might discover and uncover as they go through it.
Yeah, so the book starts off with an introduction. There's these handwritten letters that my mom and I wrote to each other and to the audience. Those handwritten letters are kind of the tone of the book and just the sacrifice that a mother gives to their kids, especially through food. And then after that, it really dives into Korean Cooking 101, where we include 5 easy recipes to get started, 5 impressive occasion recipes, down to our top tips, invest in a sharp knife. There's a lot of knife work in Korean cooking. Mince garlic beforehand, and we show you how to mince the garlic, how to set up a Korean meal, what banchan is, why the rice goes to the left of the soup or stew in a setup. All of that is visually shown and explained. And then we break down every ingredient that the book calls for that is commonly used, from the different types of gochugaru, Korean red pepper flakes, to the different types of seaweed, to even our favorite Korean snacks, so that when you go into the Korean market, you could bring this book and know exactly what to buy and feel a bit more comfortable getting into Korean food if you haven't.
Yeah. One of the pages that you mentioned this, the 5 easy recipes to get started. I think that's amazing. Then you have the 5 most popular recipes on social channels. And I always find it fascinating what resonates with people when they're on social media versus what you might recommend someone do when they actually step into their kitchen for the first time. Because these recipes are completely different.
I am too. I'm always surprised by what goes viral. Like, I didn't know the 5 most popular recipes. There's a recipe called kosu busengche, which at home we just call it cilantro kimchi. That one just went so viral, and I never thought it would. So it's always interesting what goes viral and what doesn't. But yeah, those are our 5 most popular recipes.
And then the milk cream donuts, there's a beautiful picture. I can see why those probably went viral. I don't know how easy they are to make, but they look really, really delicious. Korean fried chicken, the braised beef ribs, and then Korean barbecued short ribs, all popular on social. But if we're going to make it, we start with the braised baby potatoes, spicy braised tofu, cucumber kimchi, angel hair mixed cold noodles, and then the kimchi grilled cheese.
All of those went viral too, because I think they're so easy to make.
Yes.
So those are really great ones to start with. And the milk cream donuts, that one, all the dessert recipes were developed by my uncle, who is a well-known pastry chef here in California. And so the dessert section is so strong. And that's actually quite an easy of a recipe to make.
Oh,
surprisingly.
Great. That's beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Korean pantry. I know that you spent some time in the book talking about the pantry and what you recommend people do to stock up on some things that they might need to even just make some of the easy recipes to get started.
Yeah. So when it comes to Korean cooking, my mom always tells me there's 3 elements to what builds your pantry in Korean food. It's sweetness, saltiness, and tang. And so all of the ingredients that we recommend in here kind of cater to that. From different sauces like fish sauce to plum extract syrup to soy sauce to even corn syrup, and us explaining why we use corn syrup. This isn't high fructose corn syrup, it's just corn syrup. All of that is explained, and we also show photos of the product so that when you go to the Korean market, you know what to look for, especially if it's in Korean text. So fish sauce, for example, a common brand that Korean Americans use is the The common brand that Koreans use is the Three Crabs brand, which is commonly used in Vietnamese cuisine. But within Korean Americans, this is the all-purpose fish sauce that we use that you may not otherwise know. And so all of that is detailed in the book of these little hidden secrets and tips that are commonly used in Korean American households or by Korean moms like my mom.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think those kinds of things are really helpful because it really leads us to the ingredients that you know that we need to use. Your mom knows that we need to use if we're trying this for the first time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what else about the book? Tell us about some of the things that are features or benefits that are unique.
think the book I think the book has a great blend of both, I say this in quotes, traditional recipes that everybody is aware of, kind of like bibimbap, mixed rice, to spicy cold noodle dishes, to dishes that are like pickles, and kimchi recipes that everyone is familiar with. But there's also recipes in here that some people are not familiar with, especially within, maybe American cooks, but maybe Koreans are very familiar with. There's also a lot of modern recipes, like we have pickled avocados. We call it marinated avocados in our book, down to trendy recipes like the milk cream donuts that you mentioned, but also the traditional recipes like peanut streusel bread that a lot of Koreans grew up with and enjoyed in the 90s that we honor and bring into this book. So there's a great blend of both traditional recipes, but also modern and trending recipes that you may not find in other cookbooks like cilantro kimchi, marinated avocados, and whatnot.
Yeah. One of the things that I was told about this book is that it's like a kimchi masterclass.
Yeah, there's a breakdown of what to do if you don't have a kimchi refrigerator, because we don't have that, what a kimchi refrigerator is, how long you should ferment the kimchi for, what kimchi we make in the summer and winter time. Because I think most people don't realize this, but the kimchi that we're most familiar with, the ones you get maybe at Korean barbecue at Korean restaurants, it's the one that's made from napa cabbage. And that's known as mat kimchi, is what we call it in our book, also known as mak kimchi, M-A-K. But I don't think people realize that a lot of Korean households, including mine, we don't eat napa cabbage kimchi outside of winter season. It's not something we eat in the summertime because napa cabbage tastes best in winter and early spring. And so we provide what kimchis we eat in the summertime, which is kimchi like young summer radish and napa cabbage kimchi, which is a completely different type of cabbage. And so all of that is detailed into the book where you really get a deep dive of what Koreans are thinking and doing when making kimchi, beyond what you can find online.
Yeah, I think no better person to learn from, obviously, than your mom. And there's so much that we could probably talk about too, related to writing and working on a book with
Yes.
your mother and the bond between you and her related to this.
Yes.
I mean, everything from her perspective to your perspective, everything about lessons beyond the kitchen. I think one of the things that I think would be really neat to hear you talk about is what happened to your relationship as a result of this book. Like had a relationship with being the digital storyteller and content creator, but did the book itself bring a different level of relationship to your kitchen, so to speak, that you didn't have before?
Absolutely. I think there's two things that I learned from making this cookbook with my mom. First is learning who your mother was before she was a mother.
Mm.
I learned, it's funny because the title of the book is called Umma, which means Korean mom. But through this book and the power of food's ability to transport you back in time, I learned about who my mom was as a child. And in a way, I kind of befriended that child version of my mom, where I got to know the 5-year-old Nam Soon. That's my mom's name. And it just made me really see her more as a human. Not that I didn't before, but it just made me grow up with her, from childhood to where she is now through this book, which I think is something that is so special and something that food is able, um, it's just the power of food. It's able to transport you back in time and relive those moments. And so I was able to relive those childhood moments with my mom. Another big thing that I learned from this book is a mother's love and how far they'll go to support their kids. Making this cookbook, we had about a year to make it. It was a major challenge. And my mom never gave up and she was always there by my side to help me create this book. And it made me question, will I ever find a love as greater as a mom's love? Um, because it's just so, so strong and I don't, it leaves me speechless. And so that's the biggest takeaway is can you ever be a mom's love?
Yeah. The closest you would ever get to that would be if you ever do have your own children. I didn't even fully understand that until I had children of my own, because it is so true. It's just, especially with a mom and a daughter.
Yes, I think daughters offer something, I don't want to say anything about sons, but I think they offer something so special to their moms. I can't explain it.
Well, if you
That
just
was,
think about
yeah,
it too generationally, I mean, the continuation of anyone's lineage just comes down through the mom, through the mom, through the mom. Even in Jewish
that's
culture,
true.
it's all passed through the mom. The
Yeah,
father, often had the big status or whatever, but the mom, you wouldn't be here, for her and you to be born to her. It's just an amazing thing. I also
exactly.
love that you got to know who your mom was before, as a younger child, maybe as a teenager, because sometimes we don't see our moms that way. We think that they were always,
A mom,
exactly.
which is so sad because
There's so much
there's
more.
so much more than a mom.
Yes.
And so yeah, the book really does emphasize that there's so many stories about my mom before she was a mom, and it really shows you that a mom is not defined just by being a mom. There's so much history that shaped them.
Yeah. How did this influence your perception of your cultural identity as someone who was Korean and preserving these traditions?
It made me really obviously appreciate my identity, but it also made me feel like I had a responsibility to collect these recipes and share them, especially as a Korean American. It's different when you're Korean American because, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not fluent in Korean despite my parents being fully fluent. And if I don't learn how to speak Korean now, who knows what the future generations will look like where they have no trace of being Korean,
Yeah.
And it's the same with food. If we don't learn these recipes now, when will we ever learn them and what will the future generations have?
Yeah.
And so for me, it became very evident to me that saving these recipes, learning these recipes, it's very important because if we don't learn them now, especially in America, who will?
I'm not sure that there's any other project you could have undertaken with your mom that would have introduced you to the depth and breadth of things that we've been able to talk about other than food.
I don't think so either. I think food was the perfect medium.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just makes you think, you just imagine, take this Korean culture and think of all the food, and cultural traditions with food all around the world, and how many opportunities there are for people to do things like this and introduce other cultures to uh, the depth and breadth of what is available. I think it's fascinating. What about misunderstandings or challenges that you all might have faced as you were going along?
Oh gosh, there is so many, Maggie. I would say the one that I always share is measuring spoons. So I don't know if you know, but America is one in three countries that uses volume measurements.
Yeah.
My mom, Korea uses grams nowadays, but back in my mom's generation and her mother, everything was just by the handful. There was no scale or
Yeah.
gram machines. And so the concept of using measuring spoons, which is needed in this book because this is an American book, was just comical to my mom, where she was just like, I gave her the measuring spoons. I was like, okay, we need to use this to measure out our seasonings. And she thought it was comical and ridiculous. And they felt like toys to her at first. And when our food editor came here, because America's Test Kitchen visited us multiple times to study us and study Korean food, my mom was measuring something like sugar, and then she would constantly do like a heaping tablespoon of whatever measuring spoon, and that was inaccurate. And so our food editor taught her how to level it out with a knife. And my mom was like, "This is so ridiculous! Like, are you kidding me? You're gonna take out a knife and take the time to level it?"
Yeah.
And so there's a cultural difference of American cooking and Korean cooking that we had to get through, and teaching my mom how to use measuring spoons and that preciseness that was needed. The book does use grams and measuring spoons because we wanted to combine both elements. Measuring spoons sometimes just wasn't enough, or saying one small carrot just wasn't acceptable to us. And so we do provide grams, but we also do use measuring spoons to make sure the seasonings are reflected accurately.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I have heard this story multiple times when I interview people about capturing the quantity when you're cooking with someone who's not used to measuring any quantity. It's totally by eye or by taste or by the size of their hand. And all the clever things that people have done to get it right, because the purpose of the cookbook then is not just to make the recipe taste like it should taste, but that people could duplicate it in their own kitchen.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm sure for your mom, it was a like, what in the world are we even doing here? And especially if it's a tablespoon and she's used to using a bigger spoon, she's like, I don't even know where to start. Like, how many of these would go in?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And let's talk a little bit about your mom now. What was her response when she saw the book?
When it was completed,
Yeah.
She was brought to tears.
Yeah.
It just felt so surreal to see her stories laid out in such a beautiful way and honored. Um, she was in tears, and it was really the stories and just how ATK captured those foods that really moved her. Because you could feel a sense of warmth through this book. You could feel a sense of a mom's love, and I feel like it's shown through the pages, the colors, the stories. And my mom sensed that right away when she saw it for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I cooked all the time when my children were growing up, but there's a certain dedication to the type of cooking, and especially the little dishes and all the things that are prepared to go along with the meal, the kimchi. I mean, it's a dedication to a way of cooking that doesn't just happen overnight. And I think it's incredible. I sensed that when I opened the book and started to read through it and look through it. So I'm excited to get to spend more time with it. Also, now that I've talked to you, to really, you can get to know your mom well. Is she getting to do any of the promotion for the book or going out with you anywhere?
Yeah, we just did a 10-day book tour. We went to like New York, Chicago, New Jersey, Oregon, Seattle, all of those places. And she was there by my side, and I was there by her side, and we got to
Yes.
meet everyone. But it was also her first time, and also my first time stepping out of California and seeing the States.
Oh, you've never been
And
to
so,
Chicago or New York? It's
no,
amazing.
no, yeah, it was so jaw-dropping amazing
It
because
is.
we've
It's
only been in
incredible.
California. Yeah, it's incredible. And mom was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is a different world. Like this is." She went to New York, and she was like, "If I landed in America in New York, I can sense the American dream here.
Yeah.
Just the buildings, the
Yeah.
people, the hustle, the
Yeah.
smell, is
Yeah.
just all of that was
Yeah.
fascinating."
Yeah. Yeah. Where in Chicago did you go?
I don't know. We were in downtown Chicago, and it
Yeah.
was just the food there is so amazing. Oh
It
my
is
gosh.
it is an incredible city.
Yeah, and
And
there's so much culture.
it's a Midwestern big city. It's not like the
Yeah.
coastal. So it's an amazing place also. So I'm so
Yeah.
glad you got to go out and do all of that and your mom got to see it. Uh,
She liked Chicago the most. It was really interesting.
that's neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very it's I think it's the third. I think it's New York, LA, Chicago, then maybe Houston, in terms of size, like population. Uh,
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, but the lake being there, right, Lake Michigan, right there along this, it's gorgeous. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's so good that you all both got to experience that together. And what a better way than being out with your cookbook and getting to meet people who maybe were new to you, also hadn't been part of your community before. But I'm sure you attracted a lot of people that were part of your community as well.
It's a true honor.
Yeah.
We feel it feels unreal.
Yep. So what's next for you? What's up next here in May as you um, talk about your book?
So our book tour continues. We'll be doing more SoCal because we're in SoCal, Southern California. So we'll have more events down in San Diego where
Yeah.
people in San Diego weren't able to make the LA or OC ones. And then from there, I think it will kind of, who knows where life will take us.
So if people want
Yeah.
to connect with you online, tell us again where they can find you, follow you, and learn about any events that are coming up.
Yeah, so you could find me on Ahnest Kitchen on my social handles on Instagram and TikTok. That's AHNEST Kitchen. You could also find updated information on my website, honestkitchen.com. And I guess that's a good question, Maggie. I will be also starting a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
and I plan to share tutorials of all these foods. And so you can find me on there hopefully very soon.
Yeah, and I think that'll be a great companion to the book, because sometimes we have the recipe, but watching someone actually put it together, it like makes it all in 3D. It just seems like there's sometimes things that we do that are hard to put into words.
To words, yeah. It's funny because I actually, for all the recipes, when I submitted them to ATK, I made video tutorials for each and every one. That's how precise everyone was.
The level of detail in this book, and that really, the fact that you did that just helps me to see why the book is like it is. A ton of detail, stories, notes. You all really went above and beyond to capture this cuisine and your mom and the work that you all have done together. So it's amazing, truly amazing. And
thank you.
I think that it looks like so much fun to try to cook out of also. And now that people have heard the testing, and with most cookbooks, you would hope that kind of rigor where people would be able to use a cookbook in their kitchen and get successful results.
Yeah.
I agree. But again, for the people that just want to read it, there's a lot to read, a lot to learn, and the love does pour through. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a book you can keep in your kitchen or nightstand, whatever you choose.
Yes. So let's talk about cookbooks for just a minute. In your life as you were growing up, or even with your mom, was this any other cookbooks or things that influenced the work that you have done, or was it always just through your mom and through memory? And
yeah, all of these were through memory.
Yeah.
Even when developing this cookbook, I didn't look at other cookbooks because I want it to be just special to us, and I didn't want influence from other sources. And so growing up, all of these recipes that we developed and the stories are from either my mom, me, or the memories of her growing up with her mother, who made kimchi to get her family through the harsh winter months. All the recipes have so much history and depth to it that we wanted to bring into the book. And so all of that is honored.
Yeah, I think that's neat. And I think sometimes I 100% agree with you. When you're working on writing a book, I always say you got to kind of put the blinders on, because the most important story to communicate is the one that's happening like right there in your kitchen at that time, and anything that might have happened in your family or stories you want to tell around that.
Yeah,
that's what makes the book your own. So you certainly captured that. And I wish you all the best with the promotion. I want to thank you for sharing this, and tell your mom that we love the book. Sorry we didn't get to have her on the show too. I never even thought about that.
No, it's okay. It's usually only been me because I speak English and she's not fluent.
Yes. But you have to tell her how much we are enjoying it, and how excited I am to share it with the Cookbook Love audience.
Thank you so much, Maggie, for having us.
Okay, well, have a great day, and we'll be connecting with you online.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. Again, all the links can be found in the show notes at www.cookbooklove.co. And if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own, please check out the free cookbook writing masterclass called How to Get Paid to Write a Cookbook. It is designed specifically for food or nutrition experts, and you can check that out at www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/free. So that's it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green. And until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.